So we are going to attempt to save this cylinder. So this thing, it's got a lot of aluminum left in it from piston that melted. Right there, as you can see there. So this thing is a spark cylinder. These normally came with like a 68.5 millimeter piston, so they're like 265 cc. This one currently has a 70 millimeter piston in it. Basically, the biggest that you can put in there. So we are on our last bore. So either we would have to re-sleeve this thing or potentially have it bored and plated and stuff like that, or we can try to save it. We're not really out anything trying to save it. So the goal here is to use some muriatic acid to see if we can dissolve that aluminum off of there, and then give this thing kind of a hone and check some clearances and see if it comes out okay or not. Let's start that process. All right, so I just dipped some of the acid on there. You can see it kind of smoking and bubbling. It's slowly eating that aluminum there. Give this a little time and kind of do a little scrubbing and see what comes off. See, it's just kind of bubbling up that aluminum and stuff. Slowly just eating it away. Well, this kind of blew my mind. That seemed to work extremely well. So that got all the aluminum off. I've just kind of quickly just washed this down with some soapy water and everything. Other side here. So yeah, there's some scores and stuff, but it feels relatively smooth. I'm gonna give this thing a little hone quick and just kind of see how this turns out. I kind of think this cylinder is savable. This thing's looking pretty good so far. I just did a super light pass here quick just to kind of clean it up, and I don't see any real deep scarring or anything like that. There's a little bit of marks, but nothing you can kind of feel with your fingernail or anything. We'll go just a little bit more here. Try to get a good view of it. It's just a little bit of stuff in there, just a little bit of scratching, but nothing too deep or anything. So I think this cylinder is going to be usable. We'll keep working on here a little bit, and then I'll do some kind of bore measurements there and see where we're at. But I think we're going to save this cylinder. This thing's cleaning up pretty good. Oh, it's really hard to get this thing to kind of focus good. It's hard to see in the light, but really I've just got a little bit of scratching on that side there, which that's where the piston's stuck. Everywhere else looks pretty good. So I just took a quick bore measurement basically from like hit this spot here to that side, and then with our caliper and bore gauge and stuff, from that spot we are 70.03 millimeters in diameter. I'm gonna measure a couple other spots and see if it kind of varies, if it's out of round much at all, and we'll kind of look at our piston and things like that and see what sort of clearance we're supposed to have. Well, here's kind of our finished product here. It seemed to be pretty good. There's just a little bit of scarring down there, but you can't feel it with a fingernail at all. Realistically, if I had one more bore, I would bore this thing out, but I don't. Can't find another piston. I don't want to do like a 310 kit. I don't want to put a stock cylinder back on it. Also, this is my personal machine, so get it used like once a year. I think it's going to run. So I'm going to order another 70 millimeter piston for it, and then we'll put this thing back together. See if it builds some compression, see if it runs again. But I'm pretty confident. But that trick seemed to work pretty good. I mean, that aluminum that was in there is completely gone, and it didn't seem to touch the cast iron at all. Pretty cool trick. So along with the piston, we need to order some new gaskets. So this had that spacer plate there, and then basically two base gaskets above and below it. So these gaskets ended up measuring out to be like 25 thousandths thick. There's a wide variety of thicknesses of those, as well as the head gasket. I was looking at it closely, and this must be a high compression head gasket. It is only 10 thousandths of an inch thick. So we get the same thicknesses on those, and we'll reuse this spacer. So we're going to get some of that stuff coming. All right, we've got new piston here. This is the new Yamaha YZ 70 millimeter piston, same size, same exact thing that was in there. Big thing to note though is our old one here, because we've got some cooling ports drilled on the intake side, as well as a couple down the exhaust, and then a couple off on the side there. So we are going to have to match those. These ones on the intake side seem to be pretty straightforward. They're lined up right with the little locating pins there. And then a couple down the exhaust side. So we're going to add those, and then we'll put our rings in the cylinder and kind of check some ring end gap and stuff like that. And then start assembling this and see if this thing builds some compression again. Alright, I've got this piston ready to go. Drilled my cooling holes. I just matched exactly what was on the old piston in the locations. Definitely a little nerve-wracking, but seemed to come out just fine. So we're going to check some ring gaps. So what we're going to do is put this ring down in there, square it up with the piston and stuff, maybe about a ½ inch down from the top, and kind of measure what sort of end gap we got. See if we're close at all. Well, unfortunately on this ring end gap, we're about 5 thousandths over kind of the upper end of where it should be. But I think my plan is still just put the thing back together. We'll see what it builds for compression and kind of go from there. Like I said, I really want to save this. This ATV literally gets run maybe 1 or 2 times a year. It's not going to be anything crazy, and if it runs again, I'm happy. And worst case scenario, I'm in the exact same situation I am right now. I'll have to get a new cylinder or plate this one or do something like that. But we're going to finish putting it together here. Well, we've got our piston on there, some new base gaskets and that spacer. So let's slip this cylinder on and button down the head and kick this thing over a couple times and measure some compression and see where we're at on it. We got this motor all put back together for the most part, cylinder-wise anyway. So cylinder's all put on there, head's torqued down, got a compression gauge on there, so guess it's time to kick it. See if this thing has runnable compression again. Well, here we go. Oh, that's looking pretty good so far. 150. Oh, we're almost to 180. I mean, that's excellent. I mean, that's kind of where a good motor should be. I was a little worried on this thing because I got a little extra clearance on the cylinder to piston and then the ring end gaps and stuff. I'll give it a couple more kicks, see if it jumps up any more. Oh. Sorry for the shaky camera. Yeah, 180. I'm happy with that. I mean, my Trx250r shows like 150 on this gauge, and that one runs great, so this thing should run again. Well, we got the car back on, it's kind of hooked up. Lights halfway on. Got some coolant in it. Gas, we got spark. Let's see if this thing fires. Choke here. I'll take that. That's a good start. Cool. Well, I think maybe we'll finish buttoning this thing up. Start doing some heat cycles on it. Well, we got it pretty much put back together as far as put the rest of the pipe back on. I did repack that muffler. Oh, and then the back side, this spark arrestor part, kind of welded that little tube back in place on this thing. So let's give this thing a kick. We'll let it sit here and idle for a little bit and kind of just do the first little heat cycle on this thing. There we go. Sounds pretty good. We'll let this thing idle a little bit and then probably put the rest of the plastics and everything back on it. So this is super unfortunate. This thing was running just fine. I was just doing a couple heat cycles and was about ready to really start opening this thing up. I thought I was going to mess with jetting a little bit, pulled the needle out and stuff and put that into a different spot and went to start back up. Now I've got no spark. I just checked resistance on the black and red wire here to ground, and I've got no resistance there. And it should be between like 50 to like 250-ish ohms. So something's going on with my stator here. I don't know if when I was screwing with something, maybe a wire got a little loose somewhere up in here, but I'm gonna pull a stator cover off and see if I see anything funny down in there. But I was having no issues up until right now. Thought I was just about done. Well, we're gonna pull a stator off here. Let's pull a stator cover off. It looks like my other two color wires are for the pickup coil here, so this would be for like the exciter coil down inside there. We'll pop the flywheel off and see if there's something dumb where a wire broke or something funny. This is really weird. I just parked it here, had no issues, adjusted the carb, and then had no spark after that. Well, I'm not seeing anything obvious on the stator. Luckily, I had another stator. I have another motor up here in the shelf. This was from a 85 ATC 250R that I cracked the case on and ended up stealing some parts off of, but I couldn't remember if there was a stator in there or not, and I've got one, and it tests out okay. So I guess I'm going to swap a different stator in here and see if we got some spark again. Well, it's been a few weeks, but we finally got a new stator for the 250R here. So at the moment, this has got an eBay stator in it, which with the OEM CDI, it does not produce a spark. But if you use one of the eBay CDIs, it does spark. But the downside to that system is it generates a lot of kickback. It does not rev properly. They just work like absolute crap with those aftermarket CDIs. So we've got a brand new stator here. We're going to throw this guy in there and hopefully we should have some spark here in a second. Well, that was the trick. It runs again. Hey, now it's time to put this thing back together and kind of finish my heat cycle stuff. Well, we finally got some clothes back on this thing. But look how dirty this thing is. We need to get this thing cleaned up. So it seems to run really well now. We'll show it here just in a minute. Kind of done all my heat cycles and stuff, and I screwed out the carb jetting a little bit. I ended up going back to exactly what was in it before. It seemed to run very good there. That's where I was happy. But let's get this thing cleaned up here. It's been dirty for way too long. So I came across this stuff on TikTok, and we're gonna give it a try. You're supposed to just kind of spray it on. It's just kind of a dirt, rust, corrosion, water spot remover. We're gonna see what it does to all of these spots here. We'll let it sit on there for a little bit. It's kind of foaming everywhere, especially on the aluminum stuff. It seems to be doing its job. We'll hose it off here and see what this looks like. It's definitely making a big difference. Oh man, this thing's nice and shiny again. Look how nice and clean this stuff is. This stuff did a pretty good job of just blowing it on and blowing it back off. I'm about to shine back to these wheels. I think if I would have actually like scrubbed it, it would have been even better. But let's go see what this thing runs like. Let's go have some fun. Alright, so the TRX is done. It seems to rip really good. I'm very happy to have this thing running again. But we've got something else in the works, so you better follow along, subscribe, because we got a little shootout planned here, a little Honda versus Yamaha. So if you want to see this stuff, please subscribe and follow along. Got this coming down the pipeline at some point. And then we might just have to do another little drag race against this guy. All right, stay tuned for the next thing.